Okay, we're going to be talking about the Damascus Gate in this, and I just want to tell you a little bit about it. We're going to try to teach on the 8 gates, I think it was 8, of the city of Jerusalem, and we're going to start here with the Damascus Gate. But the Damascus Gate is one of the chief gates of Jerusalem, and this gate is every bit unique and important as any of the other gates of Jerusalem. The Damascus Gate has its own history of people, it has its own history of incidents, and it is located on the northern side of the old city wall, faces due north to Shechem, beyond to Damascus. That's why it's called the Damascus Gate. It was completed in, I think, between 1537 and 1542 by the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. You hear a lot about him in history, but it is claimed to be the busiest and the most splendid of all the gates of Jerusalem. But personally, I like the Jaffa Gate myself. But anyway, it has markets and bazaars, and it's busiest on Fridays and Saturdays. Those are the holy days. And so on Fridays, till sunset, the Jewish people are out shopping. On Saturdays, the Muslims will be there, and different ones. But directly inside this gate is the Muslim quarter, and it serves the old city's Arab business center. It was originally built in a double L fashion, similar to the Jaffa Gate and some of the other gates of Jerusalem. But it, too, like the Jaffa Gate and the other gates, is known by several different names. The Jews call the Damascus Gate the Shechem Gate, because the road from it leads to Shechem, then to Damascus from there into Syria. Each of the gates of Jerusalem possess a unique trait. The Damascus Gate is no different in that they possess some unique traits as well. It possesses. Its uniqueness is found on the walls adjoining to the gate. It's only at the Damascus Gate that the walls of Jerusalem are topped with decorative statuettes, and you can see that here in this picture. The decorative statuettes on top, or the shapes on top, however you want to say it. The rest of the walls are topped with what they call crenellations, and that's which like tooth-like structures that sticks out from the top of the wall. But outside the gate, you have like this, it's like a bridge, but it leads to a wide plaza, and they have street vendors. People come sell their goods there all over the area of the Damascus Gate, where it has lined with stones and stuff. The shuk is a roofed open market selling goods in open stalls, and it lies directly inside of the Damascus Gate. They also have another shuk in a new city. It's called the shuk as well, and it's just off of Jaffa Street. But this area inside the gate once served as an inn for travelers and merchants and pilgrims. And this gate is the largest of all the gates in Jerusalem. And in 2011, the Israeli government decided they wanted to restore the gates and the turrets and the arrow slits, and so they did, and it was really pretty after that, or it looked a whole lot better than it did before anyway. But back during the Byzantine period, which was in the 300 to 600s, it was known as St. Stephen's Gate. Now, there is also a St. Stephen's Gate. I'm starting to get tongue-tied. As well, but this one at that time was known as St. Stephen's Gate because I assumed that they thought this was the gate where Stephen was stoned at. Could have been, but most likely not. But Christian tradition claims that Stephen was dragged out of the city through this gate and stoned on the other side of today's road, which would have been the area of the Stephen's Gate today. I'm stumbling at my words for some reason, I don't know why. But he became the first martyr of the Christian church. The 2 gates of Jerusalem, also named St. Stephen's Gate, this could be the site of Stephen's stoning, or the other one as well. Some people really think this one was, and some people really think that the other one was. So, and we don't know. We really don't know. But just the fact that this was also called St. Stephen's Gate. Now, the Arabs call it Bab el-Amud, or the Gate of the Pillar, or the Gate of the Column. They refer to it as the Nablus Gate as well, because of the Palestinians have in Nablus, the city of Nablus. But during the Ottoman Empire, which stretched from 1517 to 1917, when the British Mandate took over, the gate became known as the Damascus Gate. And during the Ottoman Jerusalem, it's believed that approximately 70 dervish convents existed. And these were the convents of the mystical and Sufi sect of Islam. You'd think it was Christian when it said convents, but this was a Muslim group, and it was their mystical sect. The largest of these convents was located near the Damascus Gate. Gosh. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Kathleen Kenyon excavated in the 60s under this Turkish gate, and this is the gate they discovered, or the door, whatever you want to call it, because there was a much lower gate below the present one. You can see the one at the top, and then you can see the one at the bottom. This is one that Kathleen Kenyon found. He discovered a triple arched gateway dating back to the time of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, which was about 135 AD. And the base of Suleiman's Damascus Gate had been built on the foundation of Hadrian's triple gate. And the triple gate had triple arches in it. Hadrian's Gate possessed one large entrance, and they only let royalty or nobles go in through that gate. And it was flanked on either side by two lesser entrances. That was what the ones the common people went into. In other words, the royalty, the nobles, the things would go through the middle gate. It was larger, and other people would have to go through the ones on the sides. But Hadrian built his gate to honor the defeating the Bar Kokhba revolt. Trying to think of the name of them. Can't even think for some reason. When I start recording this, I don't know why, my mind goes blank. But anyway, the Bar Kokhba revolt, they defeated them, and so he built that in honor of that. But the triple arch gate was probably not joined to the walls. It was flanked by two towers, and they had guard rooms there. They had a small amphitheater in front of Hadrian's Gate. It was called the Neapolis Gate. And just inside the gate, Hadrian built a round plaza. And in this plaza stood a large pillar or large column, and that's why it was named also the Gate of the Column. But on this column, they had a statue of Hadrian on it, and so they named it that. And this column in the middle of the plaza also marked the spot where Rome measured distances from Jerusalem to places like Caesarea and different cities in the Jezreel Valley and around the Sea of Galilee and stuff. But they found an inscription, or part of an inscription, around this gate which read, "To the colony of Aelia Capitolina by order of the city dignitaries." Now, when Herod had the city destroyed, or under Titus, when the city was destroyed in 70 AD, because Rome was tired of the rebellion of the Jews and the different people who lived in Israel at the time, they named it Jerusalem, Aelia Capitolina, to do away with the name Jerusalem, because they didn't want it to have a Jewish name or any association with the Jewish people after that, because the Jewish people were scattered when this happened. And this Damascus Gate rests upon the foundations of the Neapolis Gate, and it was the only one of the gates of Jerusalem to be recognized and used by the Romans, because he wanted to erase the memory of Jerusalem from the earth. And, well, people still want to erase the memory of Jerusalem from the earth and the Jewish people, but, God said that's not going to happen. They might think they can, but it's not going to happen. So that's why they renamed it. That's why they banned Jews from entering the gates of Jerusalem. And this city of Hadrian extended from the Damascus Gate to the Gate of the Chain, which is about midway of the old city of Jerusalem now. And it was also another gate. It was a lesser gate known at the time, Roman time. It's not there now. They do have a street called the Street of the Chain, which I'm pretty sure that's where this gate was located. But he erected Roman statues on the Temple Mount. He erected a temple to Zeus. And they found during a much later excavation an inscription over the double gate to the Emperor Titus. The inscription was originally on the base of a statue to Antonius Pius, but it was located on the Temple Mount in the days after they named it Aelia Capitolina. But over the course of the years, stones were taken from monuments, taken from the statues and other structures there in the city, and it was used in construction on different projects. So a lot of things got turned upside down and destroyed, and This is how the inscription to Titus was found. It was originally part of a statue, but it ended up upside down as part of the double gate. The Damascus Gate, as I said earlier, was known as the Damascus Gate during the Roman period. As the Turkish gate was built on the ruins of Hadrian's 2nd century gate, Hadrian too expanded an already existing gate. He built on the gate which existed under Agrippa, and as you know, Agrippa was a Roman general. He was known for his defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra at Actium. Everybody's heard of Antony and Cleopatra. But anyway, the Damascus Gate has served as one of the main gates of Jerusalem since about the 1st century BC, the time that King Agrippa ruled. But in 614 AD, the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the Persian army, and they had a leader who they called the Wild Boar. He must have been pretty wild. But anyway, it took place in the northeast wall, probably near the Damascus Gate, somewhere in that area. And that same area was attacked by the Crusaders in 1099 AD, and on their way to victory over the Muslims. They defeated the Muslims for a while. This thing kind of went back and forth between the Christians and the Muslims. Christians defeat the Muslims, Muslims defeat the Christians, and so on. So finally, the Muslims kept it for a while, several hundred years. But the Roman Quarter, which is in the Jewish quarter now, or part of it is, part of it's in the Christian quarter, because there's actually 2 parts that's been found. Anyway, it led from this gate into the heart of Crusader Jerusalem. And the Muslim leader Saladin, most people refer to Saladin, he breached the walls in 1187 AD. So the Damascus Gate and its nearby walls have undergone several phases of construction, specifically between the years of 1183 to 1192, and then again in the 12th and 13th centuries. And Frederick II later would fortify the Damascus Gate. But all the gates of Jerusalem have seen a lot of action over the last 200 years, much less over the last 2,000 years. And there has been a lot of change in the last 2,000 years. But in the later parts of the 19th century, Arab families began to settle outside of the Damascus Gate. And at the same time, Jewish families settled near the Jaffa Gate. And in the 1948 War of Independence, the Arab forces smashed through the Damascus Gate and surrounded the Jewish quarter in the old city. And anybody that's studied a little bit on Israel will know what the Jewish people went through during that time. But Israelite forces under Yitzhak Rabin attempted to storm the Jaffa Gate in relief of the Jewish quarter, but they were turned away by these Arab forces inside. And then they had other Israeli troops break through the Zion Gate in the south, yet they were forced to retreat the same way they entered. And however, eventually Jordan completely took over the Jewish quarter and all of the old city until 1967 during the Six-Day War, when the Israeli army stormed through the Damascus Gate, and they also came through some of the other gates at the same time, and they went hurtling through the old city toward the Western Wall. And the Western Wall, of course, is located on the west of the Temple Mount, the city's northwest side, and it connects to a highway leading out to Nablus, which is in the Hebrew Bible called Shechem, or Shechem. And from there in times past to the capital of Syria, which is Damascus. That's the way the gate went. Anyway, its modern English name is the Damascus Gate, and its modern Hebrew name is Sha'ar Shechem, and or in modern terms, the Nablus Gate. And its historic Arab name is Bab al-Nasr, which means Gate of Victory. And then the current one is Bab al-Amud, which means Gate of the Column. Now, the Roman victory column that was topped by a statue of Hadrian was depicted on a map in Jordan. We one year went to Jordan. We were going to see the Madaba Mount in a church there, and the church was closed. We didn't get to see it, but I have seen pictures of the mount. I've seen a replica of the mount on the Roman Cardo in the Jewish quarter, and so this column was depicted in this map. This gate opens, as I said before, onto Nablus or Shechem. Nablus and Shechem is the same place, but anyway, it leads to the city of Nablus. And eventually, as I said, this is the third time I think I'm saying it, to Damascus. But during the British Mandate, the gate was restored. And then again in the 1970s, they did a restoration project on it under the Jerusalem Foundation. and it was done in 3 phases. The first phase was in 1981, and they dealt with the outer area of the gate and made sure that it was adequate for people, making deliveries and parking and all that. So it helped it, and they had to reconfigure the entrance so that it would be easier. But the second phase of the improvements included renovating the streets and the shops inside the gate, and that was in 1982. They even replaced some roofs and some storefronts and did some stone paving, and they improved the sewage and the water and electricity and the drainage. And then their third phase focused on the archaeological remains beneath the gate and, in the area there. And they found Roman relics, including the previous gate. They found a guard room, a staircase leading to the top of the rampart that was preserved and opened up to the public. The gate's present form dates from the time of Suleiman the Great, or Suleiman the Magnificent. And there had been a gate here long before the arrival of the Turks, long before they fixed this gate up, because it was the main entrance to the city as early as the time of King Agrippa, who ruled in the 1st century. The gate was considerably enlarged during the reign of Hadrian, the Roman Emperor Hadrian. So there's a lot of history in this gate, and it's a very interesting gate to visit. A lot of people do, and it's really pretty in the area. They got palm trees that lines, from the street down, and it's just really nice. So if you ever have a chance to go, make sure you see the Damascus Gate. Now we're going to talk about this place where I'm standing here called Zedekiah's Cave. In addition to Zedekiah's Cave and Solomon's Quarries, this site has also been called Zedekiah's Grotto. It's been called Suleiman's Cave. It's been called the Royal Caverns. It's even been called Korah's Cave. And the Arabic name for this is Migrat al-Khitan, or Cotton Cave. The cavern is thought to have been once used as a storage place for cotton. I didn't even know Israel grew cotton, actually, but I guess they did. The entrance to Zedekiah's Cave is just below the old city wall between the Damascus and the Herod Gates, and it's about 500 about 500 feet east of the Herod Gate, or Damascus Gate. Beyond the narrow entrance that you see here, the cave slopes down into this huge 300-foot-long auditorium-like chamber. The water drips a lot. It trickles through there, and some have even called that Zedekiah's Tears. I thought that was kind of interesting, Zedekiah's Tears. But there's not a whole lot I can say about this cave. There's probably a little more I could say, but still not a whole lot. But the little bit that I do have to say, we will get to it, but just not right this second. Okay, now this is one of the rooms inside of the cave, and beyond this auditorium, there's a series of artificial galleries that's been hewn out by ancient stonecutters. There's sometimes bizarre patterns and formations. There's paths that, you can just follow to every corner of this quarry system. And it takes about 30 minutes to explore it thoroughly. You could stretch that into an hour if you really want to get a good look at it. There's chisel marks visible in many sections, and some of the galleries, they're really huge. The areas are huge. It goes tall way up, and you see areas where there's nearly finished building blocks, but they're still stuck to the ceiling. Somebody was building something a long time ago, and they didn't finish. So some of them have been there for centuries. And in a few places, the stones are marked by Arabic, Greek, Armenian, and English even. Charcoal, engraved graffiti. For instance, there was W.E. Blackstone, January 1889, written in one place. Several plaques explain some of the legends associated with the site. From the entrance to the farthest point, the cave extends about 650 feet. Its maximum width is about 330 feet, and its depth is generally about 30 feet below the street level of the Muslim Quarter. Although there are some lower levels and block tunnels, I don't know what's there. Some people may, some archaeologists might, but this one right here is one of several that's used by Masons or Eastern religions. There are several religions that use these. There's like 2 or 3 of these huge cavernous areas, and they use them. And this one, there's just really creepy, dark feeling, and not because it was dark, because it was, but it's just you can tell that it just something wasn't right. I mean, it just you could feel oppressiveness. It just felt oppressive. So, and only the mouth of the cave is natural. The interior has been carved over a period of several thousand years. Herod the Great used the main quarry at Zedekiah's cave for building blocks to renovate the temple and the retaining walls of the temple. Also, even including what's known as the Western or Wailing Wall today. It's not called Wailing Wall too much anymore, but some people recognize it by that name. The stone from the quarry may have been used for Herod Agrippa's his building projects. The subterranean quarry would have been usable in all seasons and any kind of weather because it's underground. The Roman historian Flavius Josephus writes about the royal caverns of the old city, which may have been a reference to this cave, Zedekiah's cave. Probably was, because of the tunnels all under the Temple Mount area. But there's a Midrash, Numbers Rabbah mentions this cave. It says, one who observed the Sabbath in a cave, even though it be like the cave of Zedekiah, which was 18 miles long, may walk through the whole of it. Well, not today. Maybe when they wrote that, but not today. So apparently, at some point in time, this cave was 18 miles long. And we'll tell you a little more about that in a few seconds, a few minutes or whatever. And apparently, Suleiman the Magnificent, he also used this mine to quarry. He sealed it up around 1540 because of security concerns. But in 1854, an American missionary, James Turner Barclay, followed rumors of a cavern near the Damascus Gate, and so he took his dog, and they discovered the entrance to this cave, and him and his two sons returned at night secretly and explored this cave. And in the mid-1880s, the cave was occupied by a German religious sect, and it was eventually evacuated by the German consul in Jerusalem because some of the group fell sick from living in the dampness of this cave, unsanitary cave. And so they got sick, and so they made them close it up. But in 1873, a French archaeologist by the name of Charles Clermont-Ganneau, I don't know if that's the way you pronounce it or not, but I think it is, uncovered a crude carving of a winged creature in a small niche in the cave. It had two long, narrow wings, and they opened like a pair of scissors, a curled tail, and a bearded human head under a conical headdress, which sounds like maybe a cherubim or something like that. But the site has a plaque now. It's marked by plaque, and I don't remember. There were several plaques, but I don't remember this particular one. But I found that quite interesting anyway, that was found here. They did some minor quarrying here in 1907. They got the stone to use in the Ottoman clock tower that was over the Jaffa Gate. Otherwise, the site was not used again until the 20s, when it began to be like a tourist attraction. And in the late 20th century, the East Jerusalem Development Corporation, they restored part of the cave. They made restorations in it. And in the mid-80s, the Jerusalem Foundation built paths and installed lights throughout the cavern, and making it easier for tourists and stuff to access it. And in 1968, a resident of East Jerusalem contacted the Israeli Ministry of Finance, and he had a claim that during the Ottoman period, his grandfather had buried 3 cases of gold in the cave, and he claimed he could show officials where the treasure was buried in return for 25% of the gold. And so the ministry agreed. I'm surprised, but they agreed. But according to the newspaper, the Jerusalem Post, after they dug a deep hole and no gold was found, then, it all ended, stopped. Whether there was ever gold there or not, who knows? The Jews and some of the locals believe that the cave served as a quarry for King Solomon's first temple. They call it Melike, limestone of the quarry. It's real strong limestone. It's well suited to carving. It's resistant to erosion. It's thought to have been used for oil buildings because this cave contains that kind of stone. And that word Melike, in Hebrew, the word Melech means king. Melike means kingly or royal. Excavations were conducted here in 2000 and 2002 for the purpose of determining what periods that this cave was used. The wall was generally attributed to the Ottoman era, and there was a wall there that had been constructed earlier in that period, in the Mamluk period. A small number of fragments were found from the Iron Age, but most of the remains were from the Roman and Byzantine periods. And in 2011, they found an area that had been closed off for the use of quarry workers. That was probably from the late Islamic period, and it was one of many stones that was never completed, left hanging. But I want you to think about this. Solomon got his stones for the temple here, most likely. And we're talking about a place as old or older than the time of David, that we can actually walk around in and see it. And that was my attraction for it, partly, mostly. Masons claim that Solomon started masonry and that he did the work of placing stones, but not the group masons. They were called, what were they called? Well, I can't think of the name right this second, but anyway, that's why they hold meetings here occasionally, and they used to hold them a lot, but now not so much. But 1 Kings chapter 5, verses 15 through 18 says, And Solomon had 70,000 hewers in the mountains, beside the chief of Solomon's officers which were over the work, 3,300 which ruled over the people that did the work. And the king commanded, and they brought great stones, costly stones, and hewed stones, to lay the foundation of the house. And Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did hew them, and the stone squarers. So they prepared timber and stones to build the house. 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 7 through 12 says, Then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment. And it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which was of like work. Solomon also made a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken for his wife, like unto this porch. All these were of costly stones, according to the measures of hewed stones, sawed with saws within and without, even from the foundation to the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits, and above were costly stones, after the measures of hewed stones and cedars. And the great court round about was with 3 rows of hewed stones, and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the porch of the house. And a lot of people don't know, but it was Solomon who built Gezer in his lifetime. So Solomon did a lot of building. He was like King Herod in the sense that he built a lot of things in the city of Jerusalem. I'm going to read this scripture, 2 Kings 25, 4 through 7. And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night, by the way of the gate between 2 walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldeans were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army were scattered from him. So they took the king, and brought him up to the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment on him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. Now, in the 10th century, there was a Muslim geographer, and he wrote that, this is what he wrote. There is at Jerusalem, outside the city, a huge cavern. According to what I've heard from learned men, and also have read in books, it leads into the place where lie the people slain by Moses. He's talking about Korah here. But there's no surety in this, for apparently it is but a stone quarry, with passages leading there from along which one may go with torches. The people slain by Moses refers to a story that appears in both the Bible and the Quran about a man named Korah. And Korah mounted a revolt against Moses, if you remember, and his brother Aaron, and maintained that they had led the children of Israel out of Egypt under false pretenses. According to the Old Testament, Korah and his fellow rebels were swallowed up by the earth, and the cave was also said to be hiding the place of King Zedekiah. In other words, they believe that this is where Zedekiah went into and went down all the way to Jericho from. Whether it ever did or not, no one knows for sure, because if it did, it's all caved in. They have not been able to find anything like it. The king Zedekiah was a Judean king of the 6th century BC, and there was a biblical commentator. He was a Jewish commentator, Rashi, who wrote that Zedekiah hid here to escape the soldiers of the Babylonian king, which was Nebuchadnezzar, during the siege of Jerusalem. And according to him, there was a cave from the palace of Zedekiah to the plains of Jericho, and he fled through the cave. He added that God sent a buck running along the surface on top of the cave as Zedekiah was walking down below. And the soldiers chased the buck, and they found the exit of the cave just as Zedekiah was coming out, enabling them to capture and blind him. So that was the legend about Zedekiah's cave. Now, we do know that they did blind Zedekiah. The Bible tells us that. And they killed his sons first before they blinded him. So that would be a horrible thing to have to see. But there's a story repeated by someone called Radak. He said Zedekiah, was a rebel against God, and he wouldn't turn to him. He worshipped idols. So he, along with the leaders and some of the priests, allowed the temple to be desecrated, and then he rebelled against the king of Babylon after making a covenant with him. And because he didn't respect God, God sent prophets, and he ignored them, he abused them, he used them, and God allowed the Babylonians to kill their young men, rape their women, kill their old and young, and do all kinds of exploits, even to take away the vessels of the temple and burn the temple. And we know, according to the scriptures, that's true. They tore down the walls of the city, they burned the palaces, and they carried those that was left alive to Babylon. And the reason for all this, can someone tell me what the reason for all this is? They were not obedient concerning God's Sabbaths. God's 7th day, God's 7th year, God's 50th year, which is 49 plus 1, or 7 times 7 plus 1. It's a covenant year that's called the Shemitah year. So since they didn't respect the Sabbath that God has given, the year of liberty, they lost their liberty. So, America needs to take note of this. If we don't respect God and we respect what the Bible and what He said, when America rebels, and it has against God, and it's been rebelling for quite some years now, let us take note of 2 Chronicles 36, that it can happen to us. The Bible does tell us that if God's people, those which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and repent and turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, and I'll hear from heaven and I will heal their land. But until believers begin to repent and turn from our wicked ways, I don't think America's going to change. If we had enough believers across this country to repent and turn to God and repent for this country, then I believe we'd see a change. But people aren't going to do anything. The day and age we live in, you can't get people to do anything. You can't get them to stand up for anything. It's like fear has taken over people, and they're afraid to stand up for what's right and do what's right. They'd rather follow the wicked way, but it's going to lead to chaos for them. It's going to lead to destruction for them. Now, I'd like to go back to the subject of the Masons that I mentioned a while ago. I mentioned they have Masonic ceremonies held in this cave, especially back in the 1860s. I don't know what the fascination for them was back at that time, but it was. And according to a Masonic ritual, King Solomon was what they call the Grand Master of Masonry. In 1868, they had a ceremony conducted here by a past Grand Master. He was a Grand Master of the state of Kentucky, actually. And this is just what the Masonic tradition says. The Bible doesn't say this. I'm going to make sure you know it's not the Bible that says this. But we do know that Solomon worshiped gods because of his wives. I can't believe all the rest of that stuff, but I can't prove one way or the other. But anyway, the first Masonic lodge in the Holy Land was known as the Royal Solomon Mother Lodge. And it was number 293, and it met in this cave on May the 7th of 1873. The Freemasons of Israel considered it one of the most revered sites in their Masonic history. And according to the Supreme Grand Royal Arch chapter of the State of Israel, the site has special meaning for Mark Master Masons and the Royal Arch Masons in particular. But starting in the days of the British Mandate, 1920s, the cave was used for the ceremony of Mark Master Masons. And although this practice was temporarily suspended between the years of 48 and 68, the impressive ceremony where they consecrated the Supreme Grand Royal Arch chapter, that's a long sentence, of the state of Israel began again in the spring of 1969. And ever since then, the mark degree has been performed in the caves once a year, on an average of once a year. On May the 10th of 2015, they had a Masonic initiation held in the cave on the occasion of a visit of Masons from the Grand Lodge, California, to the Grand Lodge of Israel. Now, most people don't know what dark stuff the Masons get into, but for some reason or other, I not only felt the darkness of evil there, but our cameras captured many orbs, which many people believe it relates to the spirit world. I can't say, I don't really know, but that's what I've heard, and I couldn't tell you that that's the way that is, but I do know for a fact we caught a lot of orbs in that place, and it was really strange. But it was one of the worst feeling places of darkness in Israel that I have been, and I have to question that. But it's still an exciting place to visit because of its history. But I would advise you one thing: pray before you go in this. I'm going to tell you, after the experience that I had, I would say you better pray before you go and make sure that you're supposed to go in. I just had thought it was a neat place and went in. I thank God for his protection because, like I said, I could really feel the forces of darkness in this place, and that told me it wasn't good. Now, the stone in this cave is traditionally considered a high-quality building product and a type of limestone that's usually cut into very large blocks. The mellic stone looks glistening white, but when you get it into the sun, it turns a grayish color, similar to Italian marble, they say, and it creates a really hardness in the stone. It's widely believed that several special sites around Jerusalem had their stones quarried from this place, including the Second Temple. The cave has undergone 3 years of extensive work ahead of it being opened up to the public. And I know it was at one point closed after I had gone there, so I was glad that it was open and I got to actually go to it for the first time. But in recent years, the cave has undergone a major renovation, which includes a new audio-visual show, said Jerusalem Mayor Moshe Leon. And the work was carried out by the same company doing a lot of the rest of it, the East Jerusalem Development Company. They improved the cave's infrastructure, they increased knowledge of the site. The works are meant to help improve the public's understanding of the history of the cave, which dates back to the 6th century BC, and has seen many changes over its time, which I believe goes a little back further than that. I really do. That's just how far they can prove it goes. It was rediscovered in 1854 after being closed off to anyone for years because it was blockaded by stones. It is thought to have last been used as a quarry to build a clock tower above the Jaffa Gate in the early 20th century. And in these last two photos, well, last four actually, you could really see where the quarrying happened. If this cave goes down to the valley and comes out at Jericho, you won't get there by it today. If it ever did, as I said earlier, cave-ins had to have come and rendered that useless, but who knows if it ever did or not. They did have a rock wall in one place that we went down there, and it wasn't totally blocked off, but it was way above our heads. So we wondered what they were blocking off or what they had hidden behind that rock wall. But there was actually a light that they had put in that area, so we wondered if they weren't doing some archaeological digging or something else. So, but that was close to the end of where we went. So. Okay, when you come out of Zedekiah's cave, when you cross the street, you're going to come to the Garden Tomb. But this is a bus station right down below it. I'm going to talk about that. But this looks like a skull, and it's beside the Garden Tomb on the far right-hand side and in front of the bus station for the Arab quarter of the city. It's about 100 yards or so from the old city wall. And it isn't the only skull-like appearance here. There's actually about 3 in this area, but this is the most used one or the most noticed, and it is one that they believe it's called the skull from. And it was a general by the name of Charles Gordon who found this skull-like appearance on this and felt like it might be where Christ was crucified. But he was a well-known British leader when he came to live in Jerusalem in 1882, and he would visit the home of a couple named Horatio and Anna Spafford. They were the ones who founded the American colony. From their house or their quarters where they lived atop the northern wall of the old city, he had this view of this rocky place that looked like a skull. And so he identified this place as place of the skull, Golgotha, Calvary. So we have several places in Jerusalem that's traditionally Calvary. Around the corner was an ancient tomb, which he believed was the empty tomb of Christ. And about 10 years later, the property was purchased by a group of Christians from England, and the Garden Tomb Association was formed. And you can tell that they're from England because they all have a British accent, beautiful British accent. And in this photo taken between 1898 and 1914, the view is similar to the one that Gordon had from the place he was staying in the American colony. The caves that form the eye sockets of the skull are visible just left of the center of this picture. The tomb is out of view behind the wall on the left. And on the top of the hill, some tombs from the Muslim cemetery that's there now and was there then can be seen. And you can see the camels. They're walking east along what is today a busy four-lane highway. This next photo was taken in 2006, and the most prominent feature is the bus station. The two eye sockets are visible, but most of the rest of the landscape is covered. And if you believe that Jesus was crucified in this area, you'll do better using the black and white photo to visualize the event than the next one, but you can see it in the next one. So now this is a busy photo. The skull is in the middle where the arrow is. It's hard to see it from this view, but notice how the city has grown since that last photo was made. The first photograph is what Mark Twain, or Samuel Clemens, whatever you want to call him, was seen on his trip in 1867. I want you to notice the holes on the left of the skull. They have gotten noticeably smaller because of cave-ins. The old city wall is behind the photo. You're standing taking the photo, it's behind it. So it's really close. It's not very far away at all from the city wall. Now, many wonder, would this place have been outside the city wall at that time? Yes, definitely outside the city wall. North, it's the north gate, above the north gate in that area, but not on the west. But I don't think that we have any description where the tells which direction it was in. But now I want to show you some beautiful views of Garden Tomb. Just a short walk from the Damascus Gate in front of it before we enter, but this is the first one, and we'll begin with this one and go to some more. There's one thing about it. They plant a lot of beautiful flowers at the Garden Tomb, and this is some beautiful flowers, and the view is great. Now, I had gone, this was the second time that week that I went. The first time it was so crowded, but we happened to hit it right after lunch, me and a friend of mine, and it was wonderful because there was nobody there but us. And so we got to take some beautiful pictures with no one getting in the way. And that was the first for me. Hopefully not the last, but it was the first. Now this is a beautiful picture. I tried to lighten it up where the flowers could be seen. And it was just, you know, it really wasn't possible. This was the best I could do. But it's still pretty. It's really pretty. And the sign said, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. And he is, because he came out of that old tomb. He didn't stay there. And he made a way for us so that we can be resurrected back to life one day too. And we're just about to enter the tomb and see what's there. And it's a very interesting place to visit. And you might say, well, I don't think that's the real one. And you know what? It doesn't really matter. This place is quiet, solemn. You can meditate on the Lord and talk to the Lord and not worry about the disturbances because it's a quiet place. And whether it was the tomb of Christ or not, it is similar to where he would have been, and that's what makes the difference. And you can go through the door. It says, he is not here, for he is risen, and truly he is indeed risen, whether people want to believe it or not. You know, we said the other day, my husband and I were talking, I said, you know, just because someone doesn't want to believe the truth doesn't change it one iota. Truth is going to be truth, no matter if the whole world doesn't believe the truth. Truth is still going to be truth. Now this is a diagram of the tomb I took while there. You've got number one, it's the entrance that you saw standing at a while ago. Then you've got number two, which is down It's on the same line as the entrance. That's a threshold to the burial chamber. 3 is, I'm trying to see where it was. No, I believe there's 7 on the bottom, not 2. I don't see 2 and 3 myself. Oh, okay. 2 is in the middle between the 2 halves. That's where it's at. And 3 is on either side of the 2 in the center. Y'all probably saw it before I did. 4 is the burial niche at the top and at the bottom. 5 is the place where the stone would have gone that you roll there. Even though you see it out here in front of 1 now, it would have gone there where number 5 is in front. Then 6 was called, the big area was called the weeping chamber, where people go in and weep over the body, I guess. And then 7 was the small window. Now, you may think these pictures are odd, but you can fill in the blanks. The left one is one of 2 burial niches in the tomb. The second picture on its left is the middle slab, and on the right is the second niche. The top arrow is pointing to the place where the vertical stone would have set, the rolling stone, in other words, upright stone. And of course, you can see at the bottom the place for the head to lay. Now I want to begin directing your eyes to the right. Of course, you can look at the beautiful scenery, but I want you to notice the rail right about middle ways on the right. And we're going to walk that way, in that direction. Some more beautiful scenery. You can see a little more of the walkway that we're going to take to the right. And you can begin to see some things cut out in the rocks. I'm not sure what those were, but anyway. Well, we're slowly getting there. My head's kind of in the way a little bit in this picture, but we're going to move to the right up the steps. And you can see another area up on the right-hand side. Got a little arrow there. It says slit. It looks kind of another way. I mentioned there were several places that look like skulls. This is another one there that's very interesting. So I just wanted you to see that. Didn't have to put this photo in there, but I wanted you to see that, how that looked like a skull as well. Now you can see the slit real good. You got a slit to the left, and you got a slit on the right. It looks again like the eyes of a skull. This area they've put benches, and it's a nice quiet place that you can look out kind of over the garden tomb and just, you know, meditate upon the Lord. But I'm going to begin with some scripture here in Matthew. It says, and when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull, and the Hebrew word there is Golgulet. It's in the Greek, but it has a Hebrew word there that lets you know it's called Golgulet, and it comes from the word galal. I've talked about the word galal many a times because galal means a round, roll, a skull, a head, something round, a rock. And it can mean a wheel or a round rock, something round or something that goes around. So some people believe it's where a glass head was buried. Now, there's no evidence either from the Bible or physical for believing that, but I guess people can believe whatever they want. But it was named that for some reason, and we're talking about the original Golgotha in the Bible, Calvary in the Bible. But it's interesting that Christ was crucified at a place called the Skull, when the prophecy says, and I will put enmity, this is Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. Now it said, he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Atah, when it says you shall bruise his heel, is normally rendered as you, but in a Semitic root, it's a word for coming together or drawing close to someone. So the word you is used when we're talking directly to someone and there's no need to use a name. But when you're addressing God with the word atah, you're expressing a deep intimacy with him. You're referring to the essence of God, which is higher than any name. So when I talk to God and I say you, this is an intimacy there. So why would the word you or atah be used here in this instance? I mean, it's questionable to me. I have to ask that question. It can also mean draw down or come down to someone's space. Satan invaded God's space, and in return, God will invade his space. He's going to come down, defeat the devil, beat him in his space. He's going to whoop up on him and defeat him. And that's what he did at Calvary, wherever it's located at. So the skull is a significant name here. When you see Golgotha meaning the skull, it is significant. How did the enemy invade anyway God's space? With the Nephilim, with the fallen ones. Anybody that's heard about Genesis 6 teaching, they know what I teach on that, how that the fallen angels came down to the daughters of men and they had children. This is how they invaded God's space. And they have come down to kill, steal, and destroy. But Messiah has come down to bring life, and he will bring it. He will bring it more abundantly. Mark says they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull. Luke says, and when they came to the place, which is called the skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. John says, so they took Jesus and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha. Back in the 80s, a man by the name of Ron Wyatt did a dig here with his wife and sons, mostly his sons. He wasn't an archaeologist, he was a Christian. One day he was there waiting, and he and his sons to go to Saudi Arabia on a ticket they had, and he had gotten sunburned really bad while they were there in Jerusalem. And so they stayed there and toured a little bit, and they were at this area, and this is what he said now. They said they were at this area, this Golgotha here, Gordon's Calvary, when he raised his hand and pointed and said, that's Jeremiah's grotto, and the Ark of the Covenant is there. I don't know how to take that. I'm not really sure. It was interesting at the time, but he said he didn't know why he said it, but he believed it came from the Lord. So after a while, he tried to get a dig permit there, and he did. He eventually got it, and they actually found a rock that was carved out quite a few feet down from this area that he believed held the cross. When the cross went down, he believed that was where he stuck it. Now, I don't know. I've not seen the proof for that myself, but I find it an interesting story anyway. So if you want to search that out, you can. But the area's still there. They've got it covered with boards, made a patio area where people couldn't see the tunnel and all that. But he said he found blood on the stone and had it tested. Said it was unusual because it had 23 X chromosomes and 1 Y and no more. There's supposed to be 23 from the father, but he claims there wasn't in this blood. So, it's, if you want to check it out, you can. You can go to I think his son still has a site today or a website or whatever. But, it makes you wonder. I mean, was he telling the truth? Was he not? If he was, what was really going on? But I had heard him speak, and he seems like a very humble person. And I've watched him talk a few times and minister a little bit. I don't know, but he claims he saw the art there. It was buried there with some other things from the temple period. But his pictures are so dark and blurry that you can't tell anything about them. But this area has been called Jeremiah's grotto in the past, and it is claimed that one of the places that Jeremiah hid stuff. Jewish tradition said it's where Adam and Eve was buried or born. You remember Zedekiah's cave? It's about 200 or 300 yards across the street, and it's been said, I heard it most of my life while in Jerusalem, that there are all kinds of tunnels under the Temple Mount. I mentioned that earlier, and at one time that they all joined together, and they probably did. This fat meat are there, and I've walked in a few of them that still exist, because you can take a tour there, but that'll be for another day. So I can't say the man was telling the truth or not, only God knows that, but it is interesting. He said the hole for the cross cracked when the stones were rent, and the blood went down and dripped on the mercy seat of the ark. The things I've told you are quite interesting, and they actually make sort of sense, but it's proof there's not any. And even if this is Christ's crucifixion burial spot, I'm not sure what that would mean, but for many centuries, the traditional place has been at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So, and although I've been by that church so many times, I've just never really cared to walk in there and see all their idols displayed, because if it was where Christ was crucified and buried, I don't like all idols. I mean, God told us not to worship idols, so, they need to rid themselves of their idols. I just don't like it. So I'd rather go here. I always found the garden tomb more real, more like what it would have been, and so I go there. And it does have a cistern, so it was a garden, no doubt. It fits all the physical criteria of the Bible. It was outside the walls. So what happened here? Crucifixion, resurrection, serpent was defeated, the curse was broken, the serpent's seed was brought down. Is it over yet? No, not by any means. But the work of redemption's done. It's bought, it's paid for, and it's coming. He's coming. Just got to be ready. The reason that I included this with the Damascus Gate is because it's right across the street, but it may be divided into two sections. But the actual dig of Ron Wyatt's a little to the right of this. It's close to this area, but it's not right here in this area. In this picture, you can look back and see the old city wall. There's a big, huge street in between the two. This was taken from some area around the tomb. I don't remember exactly where it was, if it was at the skull or somewhere else, but this was taken in that area, and that lets you see how close that it was. But I thank you for watching this. I hope you got something out of it, and I want you to be blessed. Have a great day, and if you want to do some research on what we talked about, then have at it. God bless you. Thanks.